Welcome back to my channel, Sunshine Shoulders. I'm Calvin. Thank y'all so much for stopping by again today. You know, all y'all want to talk about is women. I don't think I've ever seen a country where women or the topic of women dominated the content as much as it does in the Philippines. Well, let's talk about women then today. But see, if you're a vlogger like me, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. See, when I want to talk about health, eating better, exercising, finances, any type of budget, anything about cost of living, savings, about managing your time over here, developing a routine, or even having any type of plan for living over here, you don't want to have that conversation with Sunshine Shoulders. You don't want that coming from me, and I don't understand why, because I'm somebody who's done that. I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I've had a successful run over here for almost 7 years. But then you don't want me talking about women either, because I give you the nitty gritty about it. You don't want the truth. You want the fantasy. And then when you come over here and there is no fantasy, you don't get the fantasy, then you say we're lying. A guy that I thought was a friend of mine, he messaged me today on Facebook because I had a copy of my book that I written. He thought it was from AI, but he said something strange, had nothing to do with the post. He just said, I don't need your love advice. I'm like, dude, I don't give any love advice. And it was kind of shocking coming from him because he's had several relationships over here. He's actually been married to a Filipino before. I just be trying to give you the ins and outs, telling you, putting you up on game, basically, about, what goes on in these relationships over here. But y'all don't want that from me for some reason. But I'm going to give it to you tonight. See, when I say stuff like, women over here, they don't want us. They need us. Y'all don't want to hear that. Y'all push back, oh, Cal, not my wife or my girlfriend. She's different. Or we're different, But no, you're not. They don't want you. A 25-year-old doesn't want a 70-year-old, but she needs you because of their circumstances, because of their situation. And y'all don't want to hear that. That's just the real life talk, ladies and gentlemen. Or if I say that when you come over here and you get into a relationship, you're just exchanging one set of problems for another set of problems. Y'all don't want to hear that. You want these women to be different. Yeah, they are different, but they have their own set of problems. They're just as manipulative. They're just as vengeful. They're just as jealous. They're just as controlling as the women that you meet or that you've been dealing with over there. Are they a little bit more cooperative? Absolutely. Because remember, they need us. That's why. So when you talk about things like that, you don't want to hear it. They have to be different. Or it's not even going to be worth you coming 8,000 miles. But when I tell you, years ago, I did a video called The Filipina Headache and how these women can be headaches over here. And it has more to do with the cultural differences, which no one wants to acknowledge, than anything else. The tempo and all that stuff like that. And, when you deal with a woman over here, she could take you to just the edge of insanity and then stop. And 5 minutes later, want to give you a blowjob and think everything's back to normal. No. I've been driven to the point of insanity, right to the point where I'm getting ready to just go crazy. And then they'll just turn around and go the other way. That's what we deal with over here. There's no way for me to prove it. But in a lot of cases, I think that it's the beginning of the end for us in a lot of ways when we start dealing with younger women over here and from a different culture and everything like that. If you see a lot of the guys who passed away over here, not just over here, but even when they took the woman back to their country, you have to say to yourself, he was doing okay until he started fooling with her. And I know y'all gonna push back against it. Yeah, Cal, that sounds crazy, because there's really no way for me to prove it. But I'm telling you that men are dropping dead, even if things go 100% right, and you 65 and she's 25. You know you can't deal with that woman in the bed like that, man. You know, it's guys who come over here and who paid that price. Guys who died on their wedding night. But I just think that it just depends on who the vlogger is, whether or not you want to hear about it or not. Because see, I've got a lot of dating experience over here. Probably more than a lot, certainly more than the Filipino vloggers have. Because when I started coming over here in 2009, a lot of the Filipino vloggers that are on YouTube now, they wasn't even dating, man. They wasn't even coming on their periods when I was coming over here in 2009. But it's just a conversation that we want over and over and over. I don't know if we want to be assured and reassured and reassured, but that's all y'all want to talk about is women. Any other conversation you don't want to have, you certainly don't want to have it with me. I'm a successful expat. There's lots of successful expats over here. I'm just one of them. But many of them don't have YouTube channels. But you don't want to have that conversation with me. And I don't understand it. I certainly would. If I'm moving 8,000 miles away, when I try to tell you that there's more to the Philippines than women, you don't want to hear it, man. You don't want to hear it. Because after you come over here and the dust settles, because you're going to get a woman, there's nothing more easier when you come to the Philippines for a visitor or expat than to enter into a relationship. It's just that easy. But are Filipinos easy? No, I just think that's part of the plan. So then what? Now what you going to do? But y'all don't want to have that discussion. You just either want to see the women or you want to talk about it over and over and over. And I get it, because most of y'all watching will never come over here. It's mainly like entertainment. But you don't want the nitty gritty. You want the fantasy, because you want that fantasy to be true. You want these women to be different. And as somebody who's dealt with Filipino women since 2009, I'm going to tell you that, yeah, there's some differences because there's cultural differences. But they're still women. And you're just exchanging one set of problems for another. And eventually, you're going to find yourself frustrated. If not, why are we getting divorces? Why are we getting separations? Why are we breaking up if it's not the same as it was over there? So thank y'all so much for stopping by. I just thought I'd come on here today and talk about women, since y'all want to talk about women. But these women over here don't want you. They don't want us, but they need us. And then you flip that around. We want them. We don't need them, but we want them. They only want me for what I can offer, what I can do for them. Every last one of them that I've ever dealt with over here. Doesn't matter what it appears to be. Doesn't matter what it looks like from the outside. And you see all these guys walking around, they're proud. They would never admit that, but that's just the facts. That's why you don't want to hear that from me. You want it to be that the woman wants you. You want to pretend like you're Michael Jackson or Chris Brown, but you're not. So if you're in America, if you're in the Philippines, wherever you are, find it in your heart to help somebody. Now the day goes by that I don't help somebody. You know, by the time this uploads, man, it'll be 4 years, man, since we built our house. See, y'all don't want that type of conversation. Y'all even push back against that. And you'll say, oh, why build a house over there? You can't own the land. Well, I never built this house to own it to begin with. I built this for my family over here. And I'm glad I did. It's one of the reasons I'm still here. But I've got a little daughter in there, 5 years old, that's going to grow up here. Why can't y'all get that? Why would I want to rent when I could spend, approximately, because the dollar's strong right now, it's about 58 pesos to the dollar now. We have about 17,000 something for a house where she can have, when she gets out of school, she can come get on the Wi-Fi, eat a sandwich, just be at home, feel comfortable, feel safe. But y'all don't want that conversation. See, if you just, let's take the minimum that most of us are paying for rent over here. Let's say 15 or 20,000 pesos per month. Over 4 years, you've already bought this house. But y'all don't want that kind of information, not coming from me. Because every time you look up, people try to discredit me. You know, they try to, I don't know what it is, but I trigger people. You know, so the guy says, oh, he doesn't want love advice from me. Well, you need love advice from somebody, okay? With your track record over here, dude. Find in your heart to help somebody. Not a day goes by that I don't help somebody. I've gotten to the point now what I'm doing is I'm going around with my Gcash, and if somebody recognizes me in St. Carlos City, if they say, hey, Sunshine Shoulders, how you doing? Sunshine Shoulders, I say, hey, man, do you got a Gcash? And if they do, I'll bless their Gcash with 200 pesos, 250, sometimes a little bit more. Like when I went to the gas station the other day, went past the gas station the other day, it was like 4 people in there, so I gave them 400. Because if I don't know anything else, I know this one thing for sure. When we help other people, we help ourselves. Take care, stay safe, stay out of trouble. I'll see you next time. And don't do anything stupid. There's more to talk about in the Philippines than women. That's a big topic of discussion. But if you're a vlogger, eventually your content's going to have to revolve around women and relationships. I see guys on here, big vloggers that's been vlogging for years, man, and they still talk about the same stuff. They have to. If you want to continue to earn money on YouTube and be relevant, even though there's thousands and thousands of videos, I mean, literally thousands of videos on dating and women in the Philippines, y'all want more, you can't get enough of it. But you don't want it from me, because I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not being ornery. I'm not putting anybody down. I just tell you how it is. I would rather know that than to come over here and be lied to or tricked. You know, you talk about the script and all that stuff. You know, y'all don't want to hear that stuff. Okay? If you break up with a woman over here, you think if me and Marilyn broke up, I could live here in St. Carlos City as much as I love St. Carlos City. But you don't want to hear that. They're just as vengeful, guys. Just as manipulative, just as controlling, just as jealous, and just as crazy as any other woman in your country. Are they more cooperative? Yeah, because they need you. Are they submissive? To an end, really, but they're really not. Are they easy? Absolutely not. That's just part of the trap. But if y'all want to talk about women, we can talk about it. But you can't handle the truth.
Boots on the ground, don't do nothing stupid. Give that man his flowers, a tribute through music. If I don't know nothing, I know one thing.